Commander Jum Kim stood at the edge of the clearing, his eyes fixed on the horizon of Nexus 7. The orange sun cast long shadows across the strange purple grass that swayed in the gentle breeze. Behind him, 5 members of his exploration team checked their equipment. "Readings are stable, Commander," said Hannah Park, the science officer. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her eyes never left her scanner. "Oxygen levels good. No harmful bacteria detected." June nodded. "Good. We have 4 hours before sunset. Let's map the area and collect samples." This was humanity's first week on Nexus 7, a planet that Earth had been watching for years. Rich in minerals and with an atmosphere humans could breathe, it was perfect for a new colony. "Sir, movement at 2 o'clock, said Ta-1, the security chief. His hand moved to his stun rifle, about half a kilometer away. The team froze. June raised his binoculars. Through the trees, he saw them. 5 creatures moving with smooth grace across the field. Their bodies were low to the ground, covered in blue-black scales that caught the light. Each one was about the size of a large earth tiger, but with 6 legs and long, whip-like tails. "Crixians," whispered Hannah, her voice a mix of fear and wonder. Everyone knew about the Crixians. Stories from 3 different star systems told of these fierce hunters. They were smart, fast, and deadly. No one knew if they were truly intelligent or just clever animals, but everyone feared them. "Stay quiet. Don't move," ordered June. "Record everything." Through his binoculars, June watched as the Crixians surrounded what looked like a large horned grazer. The hunt was like a dance, precise and beautiful in its deadly purpose. The Crixians didn't roar or make noise. They communicated with small head movements and flicks of their tails. In less than a minute, the grazer was down. The Crixians didn't fight over the kill. They took turns, each one eating in order, starting with the one that seemed to lead the group. "They have a social system," Hannah whispered, recording everything on her device. "Look at the way they—" A low rumble cut her off. The ground beneath them shook. "Earthquake," shouted Su Min, the team's geologist. "These have been happening all over the region." The tremor grew stronger. Cracks appeared in the ground between the humans and the Crixians. The predators scattered, disappearing into the purple grass within seconds. "We need to get back to the shuttle," June yelled as the shaking intensified. Trees began to fall. A large crack opened up just meters from where they stood. "Run," June ordered, grabbing Hannah's arm as she tried to collect a fallen sample container. The team sprinted through the forest as the ground continued to shake. Rocks fell from the nearby cliffs. The path they had made earlier was now blocked by fallen trees. "This way," Ta-1 shouted, pointing to a narrow gap between 2 boulders. They squeezed through, the rumbling growing louder behind them. As they emerged on the other side, Hannah stopped suddenly. "The data cores. I dropped them back there," she cried, turning around. June grabbed her shoulder. "No time. We'll come back." They reached the shuttle just as a massive section of the cliff face collapsed where they had been standing minutes before. The pilot, Du Young, had the engines running. "Everyone in now," June commanded. As the shuttle lifted off, they could see the scale of the destruction below. A large section of the forest was collapsing into a new canyon created by the quake. "The data cores had all our findings," Hannah said, her voice tight with frustration. 3 days of work, gone. "Better the cores than us," June replied, watching the dust rise from the collapsed area. "We'll return when it's stable." As the shuttle turned back toward their base camp, June thought he saw movement at the edge of the new canyon, a flash of blue-black scales watching them leave. "What did you see down there?" asked Ta-1, noticing June's intense gaze. "Nothing," June answered, "just shadows." But he knew the Crixians were still there, watching, and something told him their first encounter was just the beginning. The next morning, Hannah Park stood outside Commander Kim's office, waiting for her chance to speak. When the door finally opened, she stepped forward. "Commander, I need to go back for those data cores," she said. June looked up from his desk with tired eyes. "Too dangerous. The area is still unstable. Those cores have all our findings about Nexus 7's plant life. It could take weeks to collect that data again," Hannah argued. "I can be quick. In and out in 2 hours." "No," June said firmly. "We'll send a drone when the ground settles." Hannah nodded, appearing to accept his decision. But 3 hours later, as the base camp was busy with afternoon activities, she quietly packed a small bag with water, emergency supplies, and a locator beacon. She slipped past the guards during their shift change and headed into the forest. The walk to the canyon took longer than expected. The earthquake had changed the landscape, making her original path impossible to follow. By the time she reached the area where they had observed the Crixians, the sun was beginning to set. "It should be right here," Hannah muttered to herself, searching the ground where she remembered dropping the data cores. The silver cases were nowhere to be seen. Hannah expanded her search, careful not to get too close to the edge of the new canyon. The fading light made it harder to see. A sound made her freeze. Something was moving in the tall purple grass nearby. Hannah pulled out her scanner, her heart racing, as she checked the readings. Not one creature. 3. They weren't Crixians. These readings showed the distinct pattern of Nexus 7's most aggressive predator, the spike-backed Resorclaws. Humans had only seen them from a distance, but their reputation was clear. They hunted in packs and were known to attack anything that moved. Hannah reached for her communication device, but it was too late. A Resorclaw burst from the grass, its 4 eyes fixed on her. It was larger than she expected, with razor-sharp spines running down its back and jaws that could crush bone. 2 more appeared behind it. They moved in a circle around her, cutting off any escape route. Hannah pulled out her stun gun, knowing it would barely slow one of them down, let alone 3. The lead Resorclaw crouched, ready to pounce. A blur of blue-black scales shot from the other side of the clearing. The Crixian hit the first Resorclaw with such force that both creatures rolled across the ground. The other Resorclaws turned to face this new threat, forgetting Hannah for a moment. The Crixian was a magnificent sight, larger than the others Hannah had seen yesterday, with a distinctive double ridge pattern running down its spine. It moved with incredible speed, its 6 legs allowing it to change direction in an instant. The Resorclaws attacked together, but the Crixian was faster. It slashed with claws that seemed to shimmer with a metallic gleam. One Resorclaw fell, its throat cut. The second received a powerful blow from the Crixian's tail that sent it crashing into a tree. The third and largest Resorclaw leaped at the Crixian's back, but somehow the predator sensed it coming. It dropped and rolled, coming up behind its attacker. The fight was over in seconds. When the last Resorclaw lay dead, the Crixian turned to Hannah. She stood perfectly still, her stun gun still raised. The creature could kill her as easily as it had killed the Resorclaws. Instead, it sat back on its haunches, watching her with intelligent eyes that glowed amber in the fading light. It made no move to attack. Slowly, the Crixian turned and walked to a fallen log. With one clawed foot, it pushed something out from underneath, the data cores Hannah had been searching for. Then the creature backed away, maintaining a respectful distance. "You found them," Hannah whispered in disbelief. The Crixian tilted its head, the gesture almost human-like. Hannah noticed the double ridge on its back, a feature she hadn't seen on the others. "Duri," she said softly, giving it a name. "That's what I'll call you. It means 2 in my language." The Crixian, Duri, blinked slowly, then disappeared into the gathering darkness, leaving Hannah alone with her recovered data cores and a story no one at base camp would believe. "You did what?" Commander June's voice filled the small meeting room. His face showed both anger and concern. Hannah stood tall, the recovered data cores on the table between them. "I went back for the cores, and I saw something amazing." "You could have been killed," Ta One said, his arms crossed. As security chief, He looked the most upset. But I wasn't, Hannah replied, because a Crixian saved me. Silence filled the room. 5 pairs of eyes stared at her in disbelief. A Crixian attacked 3 razor claws to protect you. Su Min asked finally. That makes no sense. They're predators. Hannah nodded. This one was different. It had a double ridge on its back. I've been checking our scans from yesterday. None of the others had that marking. So it was hungry and wanted you for itself, Ta-One suggested, or it was protecting its hunting ground. No, Hannah said firmly. It found the data cores and gave them to me. Then it just left. Commander June rubbed his forehead. I should punish you for disobeying orders, but you're lucky to be alive, and you got the cores back. He stood up. No one goes near the canyon alone again, especially not to look for your friendly Crixian. Later that day, Hannah sat outside the base perimeter, just inside the fence. She was writing notes about the plants she had collected when she felt someone watching her. At the edge of the forest, partially hidden by purple grass, was Dury. The Crixian's amber eyes reflected the afternoon sunlight. Hannah stayed still, not wanting to scare it away. Slowly, she reached into her pack and pulled out a piece of dried meat from her lunch. She tossed it halfway between them. Dury didn't move toward the food. Instead, it watched her with that intelligent gaze. Not hungry? Hannah asked softly, or just careful. Over the next week, Hannah visited the same spot every day. Each time, she brought something different. Food, a small light, or a piece of cloth. Each time, Dury appeared, watching from farther and farther inside the fence perimeter. The Crixian never took the items while Hannah was there, but they were always gone when she returned. On the 8th day, Hannah arrived to find something waiting for her, a strange blue rock that seemed to glow from within. A gift, she whispered, carefully picking it up. That night, she tested the rock in her lab. Her eyes widened at the results. Commander, you need to see this, she said, bursting into the command center. The rock Dury brought me. It's full of energy, more than anything we found on Nexus 7. Dury? Jun asked, confused. The Crixian, Hannah explained. That's what I named it. The rock contains an element we haven't seen before. It could power our entire base for months. June looked skeptical. You're saying this creature brought you a valuable rock on purpose? Yes, Hannah insisted. It's trying to communicate. The next day, the entire science team watched from a distance as Hannah sat in her usual spot. Right on time, Dury appeared, carrying another blue rock in its mouth. It's bringing gifts, Su Min whispered in amazement, or showing us where to find valuable resources, added Du Young. Tai-One shook his head. I don't trust it. Crixians have killed humans on other planets. This one is different, Hannah said, as Dury carefully placed the rock on the ground and backed away. And I think there's more to the Crixians than we know. That evening, against Commander June's better judgment, they moved Hannah's meeting spot inside the compound, in a small clearing near the fence. They built a simple shelter where she could sit protected from rain, but still visible. 1 week, June told her, if your Crixian friend does anything threatening, we end this experiment. Hannah nodded, knowing this was her chance to prove that Dury wasn't just a mindless predator. The feared hunters of 3 star systems might be something more. Something that could change humanity's understanding of alien intelligence forever. 3 weeks had passed since Hannah first met Dury. The Crixian now came to the base camp daily, sometimes bringing more of the energy-rich blue rocks. Commander June had sent samples back to Earth, where scientists were amazed by their power potential. The higher-ups are impressed, June told Hannah one morning. They want more information about the Crixians. Hannah smiled. Dury seems to understand simple words now. And watch this. She held up her hand. Dury, sitting just 10 meters away, raised one clawed foot in response. Tai-One was less impressed. It's just copying you. That doesn't mean it's intelligent. Their argument was cut short by a loud alarm. Red warning lights flashed across the compound. "Perimeter breach in Sector 4, shouted the voice of Du Young over the speakers. Multiple large life forms approaching from the north. Everyone rushed to the control room. On the main screen, they could see thermal images of massive creatures moving through the forest toward the base. "Voraks," Su Min whispered in fear. Everyone knew about the Voraks. They were the apex predators of Nexus 7. Huge, bear-like creatures that hunted in packs. Each one stood 3 meters tall with armored skin and 4 powerful arms ending in long claws. "How many?" asked Jun, his face grim. "At least 12, Du Young replied, checking the sensors. "They'll reach the north fence in 5 minutes. Get everyone into the central building," Jun ordered. "Activate the defense shields." Taiwan moved to the security console. "Shields not responding. The system is down." Du Young tried another console. "Communications are out too. We can't call for help." "The earthquake must have damaged more systems than we thought," Su Min said, her voice shaking. Outside, Hana saw Duri watching the commotion. The Crixian seemed agitated, pacing back and forth. "Duri knows something's wrong," Hana said. The first Voraks appeared at the edge of the forest. It was even more terrifying in person, a mountain of muscle covered in thick gray skin. Its massive jaws could crush a human in one bite. Behind it came more, their heavy steps shaking the ground. "Everyone inside, now," Jun shouted. "Seal all doors." As the team ran for the central building, Hana stopped. Duri had disappeared. "Hana, come on." Su Min grabbed her arm. Just as they reached the building, the first Voraks hit the fence. The metal bent but held. The creature roared in anger, a sound that made their bones shake. The other Voraks joined in, pushing against different sections of the fence. "It won't hold for long," Ta One said, checking his weapon. "And we don't have enough firepower to stop them all." Through the reinforced windows, they watched as the largest Voraks backed up, ready to charge the weakened fence. But before it could move, a blur of blue-black scales shot from the tall grass. Duri launched himself at the Voraks, claws extended. The larger predator howled as those claws tore into its thick skin. "What is it doing?" gasped Du Young. "One Crixian can't fight all those Voraks." As if in answer, more shapes emerged from the grass. 5, then 10, then 20 Crixians appeared, surrounding the Voraks pack. "It brought friends," Hana whispered in amazement. The battle that followed was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. The Crixians moved with perfect coordination, attacking and retreating as a unit. They targeted the Voraks' few weak spots, eyes, joints, and throats. 2 Crixians fell to the powerful claws of the Voraks, but the rest fought on. Duri seemed to be directing their movements, using different sounds and tail positions to signal attacks. "They're protecting us," Jum said in disbelief. After 10 minutes of fierce fighting, the remaining Voraks retreated, dragging their wounded back into the forest. The Crixians did not pursue them. Instead, they formed a line along the damaged fence, with Duri at the center. "They're standing guard," Hana said, waiting to see if the Voraks come back. Taiwan lowered his weapon slowly. This wasn't random. They came to defend the base. "Not the base," Hana corrected, her eyes fixed on Duri's amber gaze. "They came to defend us." The morning after the Voraks attack, the humans stood outside their base, looking at the damaged fence. 5 Crixians still remained on guard, with Duri at the center. The other Crixians had returned to the forest during the night. "We need to thank them somehow," Hana said. She carried a large container of fresh meat from their supplies. Commander Jun nodded. "Go ahead, but be careful." Hana walked slowly toward the Crixians. She placed the container on the ground and stepped back. Duri approached the offering, sniffed it, then made a soft chirping sound. The other Crixians came forward and ate while Duri watched the humans. "I wish we could talk to them," Su Min said. She had been quiet since the attack, watching the Crixians with new interest. As the team's xenolinguist, she studied alien languages and communication. Their coordination during the fight shows advanced intelligence. Maybe we can talk to them, Hannah suggested. Duri already responds to some words and gestures. Over the next week, Su-min worked with Hannah to create a simple communication system. They used hand signals, colored lights, and basic sounds. Duri learned quickly, and soon could understand commands like come, stay, and danger. But the real breakthrough came on the 8th day. Su-min had created a simple computer tablet with large buttons showing different pictures: humans, Crixians, Voraks, the base, food, and water. Let's see if Duri can associate the images with real things, she explained. When Duri arrived that morning, Hannah showed him the tablet. The Crixian looked at it with great interest. Hannah touched the picture of food, then pointed to a bowl of meat they had prepared. Duri watched closely. After several demonstrations, Hannah held out the tablet. To everyone's surprise, Duri reached out one clawed foot and precisely touched the image of water. Then the Crixian looked at the nearby water container. It worked. Su-min exclaimed as Hannah poured water into a bowl. They continued the lessons each day. Duri mastered the tablet quickly and began teaching other Crixians. Soon, a small group would come daily for the talking lessons, as the humans called them. One afternoon, Duri did something unexpected. The Crixian took the tablet and pressed several pictures in sequence. Crixian, human, danger. Is Duri trying to warn us about something? Duyum asked. Su-min studied the sequence. Let me try something. She added new images to the tablet: stars, planets, and spaceships. When she showed the new pictures to Duri, the Crixian became very excited, pressing the spaceship image repeatedly. I think they know about space travel, Su-min said in amazement. Duri pressed another sequence: spaceship, danger, star. There's a dangerous spaceship near a star, Jun guessed. Hannah shook her head. No, I think Duri is trying to tell us about a spacefaring enemy. That night, the science team gathered in the lab. Su-min had downloaded all of Duri's tablet interactions. The patterns suggest a complex language system, she explained. Crixians aren't just predators. They're a highly intelligent species with their own culture and history. But why are they helping us? Ta-wan asked. He had become less skeptical after the Voraks attack, but still had questions. I have a theory, Hannah said. The tablet interactions show that Crixians value protection. They don't hunt for sport, only for food or defense. So their bad reputation, Dugum began, is because they've been protecting their territories from threats. Hannah finished. Just like they protected us. The next morning, Duri arrived with something new. A large leaf covered in strange markings. When Hannah examined it, she realized the markings were drawings. Circles representing planets, lines connecting them, and a large symbol that looked like a black hole. It's a map, Jum said, looking over her shoulder. Su-min pointed to markings near one circle. And I think this is writing. Their own written language. Hannah looked at Duri with new respect. We've been wrong about the Crixians all along. They're not just predators. They're teachers, and I think they have something important to tell us. Commander Jun called an emergency meeting. The entire team gathered around the large table in the command center. On the wall, they had pinned Duri's leaf map next to star charts of their own. The patterns match, Du Young said, pointing to a section of the map. This circle is our solar system, and this one is Nexus 7. What about this black shape? Ta-wan asked, pointing to a dark symbol that appeared to be moving between stars. I think that's what Duri is trying to warn us about, Hannah said. She had barely slept in 2 days, working to understand the Crixians' messages. Su-min nodded. The tablet communications keep showing the same pattern. Danger from space. Many deaths. Planets destroyed. You're saying there's some kind of hostile alien force out there? Jun asked, his face serious. And the Crixians know about it, Hannah added. That afternoon, they prepared their most advanced communication setup yet. Su-Min had expanded the tablet to include hundreds of new images and simple words in both human language and what they now understood to be Crixian symbols. Duri arrived with 3 other Crixians. One was older, with faded scales and scars across its face. This older Crixian approached the tablet first, studying it carefully. "I think this one is a leader," Su-Min whispered. Using the tablet, the humans asked simple questions. The answers came slowly but clearly. The Crixians called the dark symbol the Void Makers, beings who traveled between stars, destroying worlds. They had been fighting these creatures for generations. "Why didn't we know about this threat?" Du Young asked. Duri pressed a series of images. Crixian, fight, protect, human, not know. "They've been protecting us," Hannah translated. "Fighting this enemy so well that humans never knew the danger existed." The older Crixian added more. "Void Makers, coming, soon, here." A chill went through the room. "They're saying this enemy is heading toward our space next," Jun said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed fear. Through careful communication, they learned more. The Void Makers were ancient beings who fed on the energy of living worlds. They left nothing but dead, empty planets behind. The Crixians had fought them across many star systems, trying to protect life wherever they found it. That's why Crixians have such a feared reputation, Hannah realized. They follow the Void Makers from system to system, fighting them. To other species who don't understand, they look like invaders. But they're actually guardians, Su-Min added. Protectors. That evening, Duri led Hannah and Commander Jun to a cave deep in the forest. Inside, the walls were covered with more maps and symbols. But most surprising was what sat in the center of the cave, the broken remains of a small spacecraft. "They have space technology," Jun whispered in amazement. Duri pressed buttons on a device near the ship. A hologram appeared, showing a recording of a massive dark vessel. It moved like a cloud of black smoke, surrounding a planet. When it left, the planet was gray and lifeless. "The Void Makers," Hannah whispered. The recording showed more images. Crixian ships fighting the dark vessels, planets being evacuated, and finally, a map showing the Void Makers' path toward human space. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Jun said, his voice urgent. "If this is real, we're facing a threat bigger than anything humanity has ever known." As they left the cave, Duri placed a clawed foot on Hannah's arm. The gesture was gentle. The Crixian's amber eyes seemed to ask a question. "Yes," Hannah said, understanding the unspoken message. "We'll fight together." Back at the base, Jun sent an emergency transmission to Earth Command. He included all the data they had gathered about the Void Makers and the Crixians. "This changes everything," he told his team. "If Earth believes us, we might be looking at the first official human-alien alliance in history." 2 weeks after sending the emergency message to Earth, a large shuttle broke through the clouds above Nexus 7. Commander Jun and his team stood in the landing area, watching as it touched down. Beside them waited Duri and 5 other Crixians, including the old scared leader. "Earth sent someone important," Jun told Hannah. "Ambassador Jin-Ho is on board." The shuttle door opened, and a tall woman in a formal uniform stepped out. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, and her eyes missed nothing as she surveyed the scene. When she saw the Crixians, her hand moved slightly toward her weapon, but she stopped herself. "Commander Kim," she said formally, shaking Jun's hand. "I'm Ambassador Jin-Ho. Earth Command sent me to evaluate your situation." Her eyes moved to Duri. "So these are the famous Crixians. Not quite what I expected." "They've saved our lives twice," Hannah said. "And they've been trying to warn us about the Void Makers." Ambassador Jin looked skeptical. "Yes, your reports were quite detailed. Earth Command wants proof before they commit resources to fight an enemy no human has ever seen." Jun nodded. "We've prepared everything. Hannah will show you the communication system we've developed." Su-min has translated many of the Crixian symbols, and we have the recordings from the cave. Over the next 3 days, Jin-ho reviewed all their evidence. She watched the Crixians use the tablet communication system. She studied the star maps and the recordings of the Void Makers. Most importantly, she observed how Duri and the other Crixians interacted with the humans. On the morning of the 4th day, she called a meeting. "I've seen enough," she announced. "I believe you. These creatures are intelligent, and the threat is real." Everyone let out a breath of relief. "Earth Command has authorized me to establish an official alliance with the Crixians," Jin-ho continued. "The first human-alien alliance in our history." That afternoon, they gathered in the open area outside the base. The humans had set up a simple table with Earth's flag on one side. On the other side stood the Crixians, with Duri and the old leader in front. "How do we do this?" June asked. "We've never had a formal ceremony with another species before." Jin-ho smiled slightly. "We adapt. Su-min, ask them if they have a way to formalize agreements." Through the tablet, Su-min communicated the question. The old Crixian made a series of sounds, which Duri then demonstrated by drawing a line in the dirt, placing a foot on one side, and waiting. "I think it's a boundary ritual," Su-min explained. "They're asking who will cross the line to meet them." "I will," Hana said without hesitation. Jin-ho nodded. "As the human representative, I should go too." Hana and Jin-ho stood at the line in the dirt. Across from them, Duri and the old Crixian waited. Following Su-min's translation of the ritual, Hana extended her right hand, palm up. Duri placed a clawed foot gently on her palm. The contact created a moment of perfect silence. Human and Crixian, once feared enemies, now allies. Jin-ho performed the same ritual with the old Crixian. When it was complete, she spoke formally. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I recognize the Crixian people as allies and friends. Together, we will face the threat of the Void Makers and protect life across the stars." Su-min translated, and the old Crixian made a rumbling sound that the humans had come to recognize as approval. That evening, as the sun set on Nexus 7, Hana sat with Duri outside the base. The Crixian's amber eyes reflected the fading light. "Everything will change now," she said softly. Duri pressed images on the tablet. "Human, Crixian, fight, together, win." Hana smiled. "Yes, together, we're stronger." In the distance, they could hear the sounds of more shuttles arriving. Earth was sending ships, weapons, and people. The alliance was real, and the preparation for war had begun. 1 month after the alliance ceremony, Nexus 7 was transformed. 6 large human battleships orbited the planet. On the surface, the small research base had grown into a military compound. Hundreds of Earth soldiers trained alongside Crixians each day. Captain Du Young stood in the new control center, watching screens that showed different training areas. As the base's pilot, he had been promoted to lead the joint flight teams. "The integration is going well," he told Commander Jun. "But we still have problems with communication during fast maneuvers." On one screen, human pilots practiced in small fighter ships. Nearby, Crixians demonstrated their own flying vehicles, sleek crafts that seemed to move like living things. "The Crixians fly by instinct," Du Young explained. "They don't follow set patterns like our pilots." "Then we need to create new patterns," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Captain Min-soo, who had arrived with the battleships. He was tall and serious, with years of combat experience. "I've been studying the Crixian flight recordings," Min-soo continued. "Their movements make sense if you think like a hunter, not a soldier." In the largest training field, Hana watched as Ta-1 worked with 20 Crixians on ground combat. The security chief had been skeptical at first, but now he moved among the aliens with confidence. "Strike low, then jump back," he instructed, demonstrating with his practice weapon. The Crixians mimicked his movements perfectly. Duri sat beside Hana, watching the training. Their communication had improved greatly over the past month. The Crixian now wore a special collar that translated simple phrases into human language. "Your friend is good teacher," Duri's collar translated in a mechanical voice. "Yes," Hana agreed. "And your people learn quickly." Duri's amber eyes looked toward the sky. "Voidmakers coming soon. Must be ready." According to the Crixians' information, they had less than 2 weeks before the Voidmakers would reach their star system. That afternoon, all team leaders gathered in the main strategy room. Humans and Crixians stood side by side around a large holographic display showing their solar system. "The plan has 3 parts," Commander June explained. "First, our combined fleet will engage the Voidmakers at the edge of the system. Captain Min Su will lead this attack." Min Su nodded. "We'll have 50 human ships and 30 Crixian vessels. Our goal is to slow them down, not defeat them." June continued. "Second, we've placed energy traps at these locations." He pointed to spots on the display. "When the Voidmakers chase our retreating fleet, they'll hit these traps." "The traps use the blue rocks Duri showed us," Hana added. "They'll disrupt the Voidmakers' energy field." "And third," Ta One said, stepping forward, "when they're weakened, our main force will attack from behind. Human and Crixian fighters together." The old Crixian leader made a series of sounds, which were translated through a larger version of Duri's collar. "Plan good, but dangerous. Must have perfect timing." That evening, after the meeting, Hana found Duri sitting alone on a hilltop near the base. The Crixian was watching the stars. "Are you worried?" Hana asked, sitting beside her friend. Duri's collar translated. "Yes. Fought Voidmakers many times. Lost many friends." "This time will be different," Hana said. "We're fighting together now." "Humans smart. Brave." Duri turned to look at her, but not understand Voidmakers' true danger. "What do you mean?" "Voidmakers not just destroy planets. The collar struggled to translate the complex idea. They eat memory, history, make like things never existed." Hana felt a chill. "They erase civilizations from history." "Yes. Why few know of them. Why Crixians follow and fight. To remember what was lost." As darkness fell completely, lights from the orbiting battleships moved across the sky like new stars. Tomorrow, the combined fleet would begin final drills. In 7 days, they would move to the edge of the system to meet the enemy. Hana looked at Duri. "Whatever happens, I'm glad we met. You've changed how humans will see the universe forever." Duri's collar translated simply. "Friends, always remember." The battle against the Voidmakers had raged for 2 days. Space around the edge of the solar system flashed with weapons fire and explosions. The combined human Crixian fleet fought bravely, following their plan. On the command ship, Commander June watched the battle screens with tense focus. Captain Min Su's voice came through the communication system. "First phase complete. We've damaged their outer ships. Beginning retreat to the trap zone." The human and Crixian ships pulled back in perfect formation, drawing the dark cloud-like vessels of the Voidmakers into the area where they had planted the energy traps. "Traps activated," reported Ta One from his station. "Energy disruption at 80%. The Voidmakers' ships slowed, their black smoke-like appearance flickering as the blue energy from the traps affected them. Now was the time for the third phase of the plan, the main attack. "All ships, engage," ordered June. Fighters launched from every large vessel, both human and Crixian. Among them was a special joint squadron led by Du Young, with Hana as his communications officer and Duri as their Crixian advisor. Their fighter moved fast through the chaos of battle. Du Young flew with skill, following the new patterns they had developed by studying Crixian hunting techniques. Energy readings show the largest Voidmaker ship is vulnerable, Hana reported, checking her screens. "If we can hit its core, we might disable their command structure." "All fighters, follow me," Du Young ordered. 20 fighters formed up behind him, 10 human, 10 Crixian. They dove toward the massive black vessel at the center of the Voidmaker fleet. Enemy weapons fired at them, forcing them to split and weave through the deadly beams. "We're losing ships," Hannah said, watching as two fighters exploded. "Keep going," Duri's collar translated. "Almost there." As they approached the main ship, a sudden blast hit them from the side. Their fighter spun out of control. "Engine damage," Du shouted, fighting with the controls. "We can't complete the run." Through the viewport, they could see they were on a collision course with the Voidmaker vessel. "Ejection system active," Du said. "Get ready." But before he could trigger it, Duri moved with lightning speed, pressing several controls. "What are you doing?" Hannah asked in alarm. "Saving friends," came the simple reply. The fighters split in two. The front section with Du and Hannah shot away from danger, while the rear section with Duri continued toward the Voidmaker ship. "Duri, no," Hannah cried, watching in horror. The Crixian's voice came through one last time. "Tell story of Crixians. Remember us." The rear section of their fighter, guided by Duri, crashed directly into the vulnerable spot on the Voidmaker vessel. A blinding flash of blue energy erupted, spreading through the entire enemy fleet. The energy traps had weakened their shields enough for Duri's sacrifice to create a chain reaction. One by one, the Voidmaker ships began to collapse, their dark cloud-like forms dissolving into empty space. "They're retreating," came Captain Min Su's excited voice over the communication system. "We've won." The escape pod carrying Hannah and Du was recovered hours later. As medical teams checked them, Hannah could only think of Duri. 3 days later, as the fleet celebrated their victory, a small Crixian scout ship appeared near the human base on Nexus 7. Inside was a battered but alive Duri, who had escaped the explosion at the last moment. The reunion between Hannah and Duri moved everyone who witnessed it. 6 months later, Earth and the Crixian homeworld signed the official Guardian Pact. Under this agreement, human Crixian pairs would form special teams to protect both species' territories. Hannah and Duri became the first such pair, their stories spreading throughout human space. Children on Earth learned how the feared predators of legend had become humanity's most loyal companions and protectors. On the observation deck of their new ship, Hannah stood beside Duri, looking out at the stars. "Where should we go first?" she asked. Duri's collar translated simply, "Everywhere. Many worlds need guardians." Their ship moved silently into the darkness of space, a human and a Crixian together, guardians of the stars.